Well, it looks like it might be a hard road, but I'm gonna walk it with you. And I know you might have a heavy load that I can carry some too. I will lift you up when they push you down. I will raise my voice and stand my ground. Well, it looks like it might be a hard road, but I'm gonna walk it with you. That's right, I'm gonna walk it with you. I'm gonna walk it with you. I will walk, I will climb, shine my light the whole night through, because it looks like it might be a hard road, but I'm gonna walk it with you.
Good morning. Welcome to Science Sunday. You know, I love Neil Cohen on Friday. Welcome to Science Friday. So I'm really happy that we're here on Science Sunday. I didn't know how happy I was until I was in Science Saturday getting ready for Science Sunday. But the invitation of today's talk kind of moved me into some place that I love to hang out, and I don't get very much time to be there. And that is the world of new science, the world of quantum science, the world of infinite possibility as it is known by science. So, as we start bringing these two parts of ourselves together, the proof and the pudding together, then we know that, it is a divine idea, and science is part of how we get to experience it. It's so wonderful. So remember that the theme for the month, as Reverend Lynn said, is spirituality through evolution and consciousness. And today's topic is the science of consciousness. Well, that's a big topic. I know from the little bit that I've studied, and in Holmes Institute, when you're preparing to be a spiritual leader, you spend some time with these rarefied people who are talking about quantum physics and stretching your mind in new kinds of ways. And so I have an appreciation that formerly the mystics knew these things. They didn't have to become PhDs. There was just a knowing of that relationship that the natural world has, we being part of that natural world. That there is all sorts of laws at work here. We know now from studying that there's spiritual laws that are as powerful and as mathematically precise as the scientific laws, and now the spiritual laws are becoming more scientific too, and now those scientific laws are being imbued with the sense of spirit that they used to not want. And so it's starting to get all kind of mixed in. And that's really exciting to me. And in the Science of Mind textbook, in the very beginning, Dr. Holmes says, there will come a time when science and spirituality walk hand in hand, declaring and proving that which was unknown, it becomes known. And so it is this relationship, and we are here now. We are in that moment. And it's been building for 50 years, because evolution doesn't just happen, there are people who say it's all a big bang, and it does feel like a big bang when you're in your passion. It feels really exciting, and it's really cool. I think myself that it evolves. And what I've discovered just in a couple days of really deeply playing with this topic is that one informs the other. Science informs spirituality, and spirituality is informing science. And that is, as you know, a new day. That's a new paradigm, because there's always been such a wedge between science and spirituality. Scientists would not let themselves think about any of those esoteric things like consciousness or empty space. So, you know, Reverend Lynn and I have been really urging her to offer Quantum Soup again. It's a 4-week class that looks at some of this stuff. But until then, I decided to just plow on. And I spent yesterday afternoon, last night, most of half the night, and early this morning, looking for a definitive answer. What is consciousness? How is it defined? Surely, with all of the geniuses that are in the world, in all the different spheres that there are out there in every field, whether we're talking biology or physics or ecology or any form of the natural world, there's a consciousness in it. You know, I couldn't find one definition that said it. In fact, every place I said it's really hard to answer this question. So I felt a little better. I thought I was just off in left field, which I've been known to do from time to time. And as I explored 20 different sites last night and this morning, I was intrigued by how similar the conversation is. In one site, I read that science has now proved, now of course, you know, one scientist proves it this way, and another scientist says, no, it's this way. So I'll just say this with a grain of salt, but that science has now proved that emotions are not simply a emotional or intellectual or mental response to an outside condition. Actually, emotions are a sense, like our sight and taste and our hearing. Well, that's a game changer, if that's indeed true. Because, you know, we've often been taught that emotions are bad. That means that we're letting our emotions get the better of us. You know that phrase. You've heard that. It's not good to have emotions. It means you're not in charge of yourself. I've always thought of emotions as a lamp to light the path where I'm at, to show me where I'm maybe off the mark a little bit. There's something that I'm not in order with, or something that I'm really needing to discover and I'm holding back, and so I'm holding on to what I knew and it's not working, and so I have more of, I've always thought that emotions have a powerful purpose. Now, the song that you sing, that you start before the prayer, Rick, is such a powerful song where it's remembering who we truly are, remembering, I don't even remember the words, I just remember, it's like remembering our divinity. And in fact, at the end of the day, after 24 hours swimming in this quantum soup, that's where I ended up. That the answer to being a positive addition to what's going on in the world, I don't need a degree in quantum physics. I don't need to understand why quarks do what they do and how waves become whatever and they change based on your whatever. I know that that's true. Your perception rules. I get it. But what I get is that consciousness rules. And consciousness, at the end of the day, is how we show up. How we show up is the result of everything. All of our consciousness. Consciousness is our ability or inability. Well, let me back up. If you're a biologist, as my son is, consciousness has a different perspective than if you're a religious scientist, as I am. So every discipline that we're in uses this word in its own way. So first of all, we have to recognize that. But nonetheless, there is this pattern within it all that connects us all. And it says that there is a knowing about things we really don't know how we know, but we know them. Now, we can call it intuition. We can call it hunches. We can call it whatever we like. In the book Blink, which is such an incredible book, I want to do a whole talk or a month on that book. And it talks about thin slicing and how the brain knows things that we don't have the awareness that we know, and how we are learning to use that more and more. That's consciousness, that we're learning to use it more and more. That is the science of consciousness. When we understand, as we teach in this teaching, as we understand that thoughts are things, then when we think something, we expect some form to show up. That's the science of that's using the science of consciousness. In the book Blink, it says there is so much more than what we know about going on. And trust yourself that your first impression can be as powerful as somebody who would study the thing for 48 hours. And I'd love to do a book study on that book. In the research around consciousness, you will hear one phrase over and over and over again, and that is, contrary to prior, what do you call those things, paradigms, there is now a knowledge shared amongst the spiritual consciousness people and the scientific consciousness people that every atom is 99.9999999% empty space. That's a phenomenal insight. It took so much evolution of consciousness to be able to have the science to delve into that idea. So do you see that consciousness, which I define as the ability to know beyond what you know because you're connected to the one mind, the one power that knows everything, and I don't have to know it. I just have to know that it is, and I have to allow it I have to give it room, safe passage through my mind. And as I do that, it can show up in ways that I couldn't if I'd used my linear thinking to try to figure it out. Because my linear thinking would have said, all right, I'm allowed this much, and then I get that much, and then they're not going to want that, and so I'm going to do that, and get caught in this loop that is based on an old idea, an old level of awareness of myself and how the world works. And new consciousness says, really, there's no separation between any of us. And as much as we think we're better or worse than anybody else, it's not true. We all have exactly the same amount of spiritual DNA in each of us. It's all the same. The only difference is what are we doing with it, or how much of it do we understand or feel or want to experience or open ourselves to. So as I was thinking about this 99.9, I started to write a line that was so fascinating to me. It just changed. So what is consciousness? It talks about the 99% of matter is empty space. Spiritual teachings like ours believe that the word consciousness is synonymous with God, which is synonymous with love. So let's say, just what if the 99.999 emptiness was where God was? What if it was all God? We just don't have the science yet or the consciousness yet to understand how it looks like it's nothing. But what if it isn't no thing? What if it is the thing? The main thing? I mean, really? We just don't have the eyes to see it yet. You remember from the movie, What the Bleep, where the Indian chief went and stood on the shore, and he knew, he didn't know how he knew that something was happening there. He couldn't describe it because he couldn't see it, but he knew, and he stood there, knowing that he knew And then he saw some change in the water pattern. He did not see the ship that was there because in his story, in his consciousness, it couldn't be. But it was. He just didn't have the awareness or the grasp of a bigger idea that let him see it. We saw it and we were all rooting for him, weren't we? So where is it in our own lives that we know that there's something and we just don't see it? We want it. We can taste it. We are ready for breakthrough. We are ready to be loving. We are ready to not be petty. We are ready to believe more. But we don't know how. We just don't see how we can be like that. Or maybe we've had lots of experiences when we tried and it didn't work and we got hurt. Or maybe it's because whenever anybody does that, it always is like that. So we have a circular kind of process about when A does B, then C is automatic. But maybe that's not true. That's just your way of connecting the dots. What if actually in between A, B, and C are universes of possibilities where things could be done totally differently? And we just don't see it. What if? I get so excited by this idea because if the empty space could possibly be the unformed substance of pure potential that Ernest Holmes has taught about, and so has every mystic always talked about the same thing. If that is true, then what is our job? Our job as beings walking this spiritual journey, because that's what we're all on. We're all on a spiritual journey, and everyone is in their perfect place. And what if our job is to do as Rick's song said? To remember that right here within me that seems solid, or some not as solid as I'd like anymore. You know, my daddy used to say when I was a kid and I didn't have any of this, he'd say, "It must be jelly. Jam don't shake like that." And I believed it about that little tiny bit of jelly. Now I'm learning to unbelieve it. Yeah, it's all good. I love it the way it is. And I know that I can use the science of this consciousness to really be in alignment with what is my highest purpose. That's the other piece in that song, is about what is my highest purpose. My highest purpose, and our highest purpose, if I could speak for you, is not to hang out in the safety zone. Not to just hang out where we're comfortable. Not that we need to always be at risk, but we need to not always be there in the box either. So our job is to remember that we are divine beings having a human experience. Now, there's a lot of people that don't like that idea, and the more bright we get with it, often what happens is we invite more resistance to it. And we have a world right now at that crossroad. And the only way to see this world that I know that's healthy is the last thing I wrote about this morning. And it's what Rick sings about. That our mission is to look at the conditions in our world with the eyes of the divine until we so completely believe only in divine truth and see that belief in the truth is a belief in the divine. Dr. Holmes says we must have the faith of God, not merely the faith in God. And that means that we must discipline ourselves to aspire and lean into the highest consciousness we can every day. If we want our lives to change and to experience more love and more joy and more peace and more self-care, which is something I'm really working on and I'm not succeeding every day, I can't beat myself up for not succeeding. I have to remember that I have a compass in me. It is in every cell in my body, and it knows my highest truth. And my highest truth is there is a way to do and be it all. and take care of me and love swimming in this consciousness soup and love being here and doing all that I'm doing. So I trust that. What is the more that we want? If all of those cells are filled with pure potential, what more in your life do you want? Because the idea that there's something happening out there in the water where that ship was, that idea is in you. It's calling you to say yes to that urging that you have. And the science of consciousness says it will not force it on you until you're ready. But the moment that you're ready, you will see it. When the priest came to the religious leaders in the 1500s and said, we must meet with this Copernicus man because he has a new idea. He has a revelation to share. That life is not the way it was. We're not going to fall off the universe. We're not going to fall off the earth. There's another system and we don't understand it, but he does. Let's listen. You know what happened. They rejected Copernicus. And they burned the priest at the stake for heresy. And, you know, that was an old consciousness. But we still do that in little ways with people that are different from us. You know, we judge, and even though we don't think we're judging, we have a subtle, that's what the book Blink is about. There's a whole chapter about how subtle is the depth of our disbelief. How subtle that is. So what are we as spiritual beings to do? We are to know that we are divine. We are to know that we can remember, we can wake up. And we can make a different choice. And it is in that conscious choice that the thing will shift. The second that we allow ourselves to go, what if it is possible that science and spirit are actually becoming partners? What if it's possible that evolving my consciousness evolves my capacity to understand how science works? And what if I understand how science works more? What if that can help me evolve my consciousness? What if it is the connection that matters? What if that's what I'm meant to wake up to? So, I have a little video I want to show you, but before that I just want to say, so is it the awareness of what is that makes the difference? Is that what's driving me? So when I imagine that there's more possible, is it that the awareness that moves me forward? Or is it the thing that's in that 99.999 spaciousness? Is that the thing that's trying to wake me up that I'm not aware of at all? But it is pure awareness going, come on, you can do it. We're rooting for you. Wake up. Let me sing you some more songs. I know you can feel it. You know, what is it? But then it doesn't really matter. What matters is that we listen to whatever the urging is and that we wake up. So this is such an amazing life. And this is such an amazing moment. And the spirituality that we have, we can apply in a new way today. We can know that applied consciousness is the new science. And we can apply it in ways that used to make us unhappy. We can particularly take it there. And try this consciousness that we say we believe in those moments when we are feeling less than, or outside of, or different, or not welcome. We can try. It would be a wonderful thing to do together. So just to cap it off, I want to show you a 3-minute video. And I want to start with a photograph because I haven't been home in, like 40 days almost. And my family, there they are, God bless them. My family participated in something yesterday, which has the high consciousness of standing for what you believe in. And they've never done anything like that, even though I was a really big protest marcher in the old days. But now I know that protesting doesn't work, and praise heavens, so do they. So yesterday, the whole family marched for what they care about, for the environment, for science. They took a stand for what matters. Now, how consciousness works is when you make that shift from they need to take better, they're both scientists, both these people. So they have complained about the budget cuts and everything that they get, but they realize, oh no, it's my job to use my consciousness and my caring for what I believe in. So I am so impressed, and that's how it works. And so I want to show you this amazing 3 minutes that I found, which really says to me how connected we are. And I hope it touches you at the depth of what's possible in your life too.
What if you were connected to everyone in the world? How would your life change? What if you could see the patterns, see the beauty, new ideas in science, deepen your connection to nature, to the stars, and to each other. Learn to see the world differently.
What really keeps me going, this transformation I can see when a person realizes that they're connected to everything and that they matter in the universe. We experience this life, and most people don't ask, like, how did I get here? What is this life? How am I moving trillions of atoms around? We often hear the concept, everything is connected, it's all one. For many people, it resonates as something true. But how is that true? Some of the work I've been doing starts to open the door to understanding how everything is connected. Everything we experience as reality is actually made up of 99.99999% space. So maybe instead of looking at matter, defining the space, I start to think maybe it's space that defines matter. I look carefully at the natural world, I found this interconnectivity of all things. And I started to wonder, what is the source of this self-organizing system?
The connected universe. Now on Vimeo.
Isn't that fantastic? So, like in one of my favorite books that's in the library, in the bookstore, The Art of Possibility, in the prelude it says, there's much, much more going on than we ordinarily think. It's so full, and it's so here, and it's so for us. So let's pray about that. What a great adventure we're on. And so I invite each of us to just open, notice what you felt this morning, what ideas may have piqued your interest, what took your breath away, like that child looking up into space after he says, see it differently, and you look at that child and you know that that child does see it differently. And so there is a new evolution of humanity, and we are part of the midwife, part of the shepherd, part of the stewards of this enormous evolution and transformation of consciousness and how we live. And we are truly, as you saw in that movie, there was a moment when he was coming from the cosmological perspective, in other words, your worldview of who's on first and what is God and what am I, and then the quantum path. How does it all work really? How can I prove it? And from both of those places, he came to one path, which in my mind, and I invite you to ask, in your mind, what is it? What is the thing that makes sense to you in this moment? I believe, for me, it's to remember that I'm divine, and so are you, and so is everything, and that there is a pattern of perfection. It's always been here. I just always didn't see it. But it is. And if I can relax my conditioned brain and the collective chatter in my mind long enough to be still in meditation or prayer or looking or being in nature, I can remember that we are all connected and there is a divine intellect at play. And I can imagine that the empty space is full of a potential that heals everything that we allow to separate us now. Because in that empty space, we can claim love, peace, compassion. We can live our purpose. And so what if that empty space has all the answers to cancer, to war? There is so much more here for us. And so I invite myself and each of us here to open to that more today. To know that there is a scientific system that brings us, at every new level of awakening, brings us more demonstration, more scientific proof that what I think and what I feel and what I believe matters. And that I must live it in every little nook and cranny of my life. So I give thanks for this teaching, for this building that allows us to come here and be reminded, to look into each other's eyes and to see the face of God, and to be able to step over our little selves, our past selves, and let love be the guide. So I'm grateful for this teaching, for this building, for the Center for Spiritual Living that provides us this opportunity to come together and heal, to heal the idea of separation, for there is no such thing. There is no such thing except in our minds. And so I, let it be dissolved. And if I need to do that 1,000 times a day, blessed be, may I have the courage to do it until I feel one with each of us and with all. And I know that we can. And so with gratitude, I let it be so. And together we say yes, and so